Welcome to Asian Like Me, presented by me, Dr. Sohee Jun, the podcast for the modern Asian woman redefining what it means to thrive. I've spent years navigating the complexities of culture, family expectations, and career ambitions. Here, we have real, unfiltered conversations with incredible women who are breaking barriers, charting their own paths, and owning their power. Together, we'll dive into the wins, the lessons, and the challenges we all face. And yeah, we'll laugh. We'll share stories and drop some actionable tips to help you crush it in your own way. This is your space to feel seen, heard, and inspired. Ready to rewrite the rules? Let's drop in. Hi, Selena.
Hi, Sohee.
I have been waiting to be in conversation with you. I am thrilled about the topics we're going to go into. And what I love is that you and I both have a mutual friend who introduced us like 2 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, so I always thank him for connecting me to you because you're just phenomenal and the epitome of a badass modern Asian female. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sohee. Likewise, right back at you, right? So glad to have the chance to meet you. And then we quickly had such wonderful chemistry. I can't wait to dive into our conversation today.
Thanks. Yeah, we did. We have great chemistry. I want to start with that question around chemistry and what's exciting and ask you what's currently lighting you up?
I love your question. So it always makes me think. I'll start telling you a little bit about something that I experienced. I'll say I actually was having some challenges, to be honest, career-wise. And those challenges led to some pretty serious self-doubt, right? And then I'm sure you can probably relate to this. And for those who are listening as well, the classic Asian voices surface to our mind and start to talk to us. And what the voices said to me at that moment is, Selena, do you really know what you're doing?
Mm.
Are you really good as you think you are? Hey, look at everybody else. You're already so behind. Maybe this is it. Maybe you reach your limit. Those voices, they came up for me quite a lot during that time. That I was determined. I remember saying to myself, I can't do this anymore. I must look into this, dig deeper and understand why and what, all of that, because I felt completely out of balance. So it took about a year or maybe even a little more than a year
Mhm.
and truly accept who I am and then finally come out of it. I feel like I had this realization and to be able to truly unconditionally accept who I am. Coming back to your question, what led me up is this newer version of me. I
Mm.
feel not only confident, I feel like so more importantly, I feel very comfortable of who I am, especially comfortable with my flaws,
Oh, wow.
accepting what I am capable of, and also acknowledging what I'm not yet, right? And so what's lighting me up is also I am excited about the impact I have already made and will continue to make. So the good news is I feel very centered and also at ease. I love what you said, Sohee, yesterday at the California Women Conference
Yeah.
about giving yourself grace and self-compassion. So I'll tell you, and also those who are listening, if you ask, hey, what does that sound like? Nowadays, the self-talk I have is not so much about, hey, Selena, why didn't you think of that? How come you haven't done this already, right? It's not those voices anymore. The self-talk I hear nowadays is a little bit more, hey, that was hard. What are you proud of? What did you stay true about?
Wow.
And what did you learn from it? So that's lighting me up.
Oh, wow. Selena, this is what I so enjoy about our conversations. Every time you and I sit down, You drop the biggest nuggets of wisdom. And in that simple question, you've said so much. I need to unpack every single one. So just hold up because I have like so
I
many
know you're like a
questions for
hold
you.
your horses right there.
Because Selena, remember when you and I had lunch about a year ago, close to a year ago, where we were talking about similar things of what's lighting us up in our journeys? And what I heard you say just now is that amidst the career challenges, where thank you for being very vulnerable, Selena, about self-doubt, because I'm gonna dare to say that yes, for you, it's the classic Asian voice of like really self-doubt and questioning yourself. And I think that this hits 99% of women. It's the really harsh voices that you have and that I've had, and I still grapple with. And what I want to share, similar to what yours in terms of your journey, is that it does get a little bit easier to have more compassion. And for the listeners, by the way, Selena was at the California conference for women that I spoke at yesterday, and I just loved seeing your face. It was such a bright spot for me to see you out in the audience. And I want to know, you said it took about a year to work through, and that's what's really critical. That now you have this newer version of you. What was the first step of getting to the evolved you?
Wow, that's a great question. I think what I realized is I wasn't really accepting who I am. I think this is the most hard, but it is so rewarding if we're willing to go there. I frankly, I'm proud of myself because I feel that took some courage. Part of the questions I ask myself is, what are you afraid of? And then I find myself saying, I'm afraid of what if this is a failure? What if blah, 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 right? And then I said, okay, what are you really afraid of? And
Oh,
then I push
right.
myself to think deeper. So that was a hard conversation to have with myself, to be honest.
Mhm.
But I found that after I asked myself like 2 or 3 times, I realized, oh, that's what I'm really afraid of.
What was it?
That
What was it? You can't gloss over that if you don't mind sharing. What were you really afraid of?
I think I was in a role that really mattered a lot to me from a career perspective. I was afraid of failure, right? I was like, oh, this is embarrassing. What if it's not paying out? What if it's not right? What does other people think about this and all of that? And then when I keep asking myself the question, I think I finally realized I was really equating the quote success of the role to define me. And then I realized, you know what? No, whether it's a failure or not, let's just maybe not even use that word. I think it's a bump in the road
Mm.
and it's meant to be there because I need to learn from it because I don't know how to deal with that kind of challenge in the past. So that's something I reconciled and I rumbled with it and then realized, you know what, this is a good thing that's happening. As painful as it was, I learned so much from it. And then it's not a failure, it's a learning that I have to learn myself. No one else can teach me. So that really helped me to get out of that and then felt, okay, you know what, I can absolutely learn and handle this. And I did.
It's so resonant on so many levels because what you shared about starting from a place of not accepting who you are. And I have to commend you, Selena. There's no harder, to your point of saying there's no harder and yet more rewarding work than really challenging yourself and you asking, what are you afraid of? And then you asked it even more deeper. No, what are you really afraid of? And to come to understanding from what I heard you say that you put so much on your role and that it had to be successful and that if it was successful would indicate your own success, right? So the inverse of that is if it's not successful, then you're also a failure.
Exactly. And
That's
that's
so
the
big.
scary thing if you think about it, right? No wonder I was afraid.
Yeah, it's very binary. I love the timeliness of this because it's some of the mindset stuff I spoke about yesterday, and that's in the book, which is a lot of people, myself, get very binary. It's this or that, it's success or it's not. I either win or I lose. I'm a success or I'm a failure. And what's really refreshing, I just want to thank you for sharing this first and foremost, because outwardly, Selena, like everyone would think you are the classic definition of success. Like you're the current global head of talent development at a company. You've worked with numerous large Fortune 500 companies. So outwardly, people would say, what doubt does Selena have? She is so successful.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And it's also the other piece I would say I reflected hard on that is what do I want to say no to?
Mm.
And what do I absolutely want to say yes to? And what I realize is I absolutely want to say yes to the learning. I absolutely want to say yes to the challenge so I can also learn from it.
Yeah.
I made a very clear commitment to myself. I will not be treated disrespectfully, right? I
Yeah.
will not be talked over or completely dismissed or stuff like that. So once I have that clarity, then who cares is a failure, mistake, or success? It doesn't matter. I stayed true to myself and I did what I think is right. And then I feel very proud of that moment because it's, and also grateful that I put in front of my past and then I experienced it. That was wonderful.
Yeah, there's so much you're doing in terms of reframing the experiences, which helps you to move forward. That's the steps that you take, right? So going from understanding what you're afraid of to this point of, I know exactly what I'm going to say no to and yes to. And that's been a journey for me too. And
Mm.
I'll admit that I'm a recovering perfectionist. That's always writing side of me. Like I'll admit that. And I think that for me, it's okay. The saying no to things is really important. And also, I'm about enjoying the journey much more than the outcome, which I think that you'll probably relate to that, Selena. But let
Oh
me,
my gosh, absolutely, Sohee. I'm nodding my head even though you can't see me.
I know I feel the nod, Selena.
Uh-huh, exactly. Yes, I enjoyed the journey. I absolutely love that. Yes.
Yeah, it's so for me, it's like the reframe is like I'm gonna focus less on the outcome and just be in the moment and the process, which helps you learn. And what I love about the no's for you is so much for all women around not being disrespected, not being talked over, not being dismissed, which, by the way, 99% of the Asian females I coach really want to learn how to do this. And so let me go there with you. How do you do that for yourself?
That certainly took some courage. I'll maybe tell a quick story. I hope we can all maybe reflect and learn from it. This was a while ago. I was on a call. I was leading a significant area with domain expertise and perspectives. And then there was three people, including me on the call. Shortly after we started the call, I realized I wasn't part of the conversation. The
Mm.
two individuals, even though it was on Zoom, they were having the conversation. There were questions were specifically directed at one another, but not me, right? As you can imagine, that wasn't a good experience. I was surprised by it. Back to your question, so here, what can we do? I actually set up separate calls with each one of them to follow up on that. We hop on the call with one of the individual. I said, hey, I was just a little bit surprised at what I experienced and observed on that call. I want you to help me understand. And then we had a candid conversation about it, right? So the person I don't, and then I said, hey, I lead this area, and I also have perspectives I think will be beneficial for you and for all of us to hear and share and talk through. That wasn't what I experienced on the call. So that's an example of how can we stand up for ourselves. Don't let that go. That's not okay. But maybe at least at that moment for me, I didn't want to bring it up in front of everyone, but I had separate conversations with each one of them, right? So I'm giving them a little bit grace, but also have that kind of conversation in a more intimate setting. So that's an example of sometimes the moment passes in seconds. And then later on, I know I've been in that shoes before where I did not say anything. I did not circle back. And I just said, you know what, it's not worth it, just let it go. And then it happened again, right? Nowadays, I will absolutely not let that go and have that conversation and advocate for yourself and seek to understand, right? We're not here to attack anyone. Rather, I want to understand why that happened, How did you experience it from your point of view? And then let me bring awareness to you about how it landed on me.
Wow, that is the most, because I am a visual thinker, and as you were sharing that story, I was just imagining it go down. And if I may expand on that, I imagine that there were feelings of invisibility and shame. And what else were you feeling when you felt dismissed, in essence?
Invisibility, that is the right word, right? I feel, wow, okay, I don't exist on this call. What is just happening, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt that so many times too, especially in my early career, where I'm like, wait a second.
Mm.
And so, what I love is that in that, whether it's in that moment or immediately after, it took a lot of courage for you to call those people individually, which, by the way, I think is a beautiful strategy to talk one on one with people and then to explain with the intent of understanding, which is, it is about opening up the conversation, right? And I imagine that you weren't defensive. You were more just let me share with you my perspective and then understand yours, which I think is really beautiful.
Thank you for saying that. I'll be very transparent. One of the individual, she's so wonderful. She said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that." I said, "Yeah, so let's talk about that." And then she said, "How can we do this differently? How can I do this differently, Selena? So we don't have this kind of experience for you." I love that. I absolutely
Wow.
love that. But in reality, there's also another possibility, which is exactly what happened with the other individual. She was in denial. She said, "Oh, that's not what happened. That's not what I meant." But I think what's important is we have to say something
Yes.
and we have to stand up for ourselves and have that voice. And then I do think that awareness we're surfacing, regardless, is bringing something and making a little bit difference, one step at a time.
Oh my gosh, it absolutely did. And thank you. That's such a powerful example of risk taking. And also that even though that person didn't agree about how it all happened, that's okay because you're leaving an imprint. And the hope is that some awareness on the other person's side of it. But again, we can't control what other people do. What I always say, and what I think you did so beautifully, is you can control your action and reaction.
Exactly.
Yeah. And by the way, it builds self-trust, which it sounds like you have heaps of, so much more self-trust, which is beautiful.
Thank you. I'm also learning from you.
You
Every time
are?
we talk, yes, absolutely.
I love that. Thank you. You're just such a joy to be in conversation with. Let's talk a little bit more about your journey here. And I've shared in the opening podcast episode about my journey and coming at a really young age to the US, which I think is a unique, a distinct experience from those that are born in the US, being Asian. And you came later in life, is that right? Tell us about
Yeah.
that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I graduated college in China. So I was born and raised in China. I speak Mandarin. In my early 20s, I know I wanted graduate studies. Don't ask me why, I just wanted it. But, but then it became very clear I have a choice, right? I was thinking, okay, I can get my graduate degree in China or elsewhere. And then I decided I want to go out, right? I want to see the world. I want to take a venture. And if not now, when? So that led to me flying 6,000 miles to the United States, landed in Philadelphia, and started my graduate studies. So that's how it happened.
Wow. Again, like you are the, honestly, Selena, you're the epitome of courage. You know, I remember I was young and my parents were in their 30s. I remember it being a struggle for them to assimilate, obviously, in ways that they didn't share with me in detail. But what were some of the ways that you found it both easy and challenging to come for grad school?
Mm. Believe it or not, it's the simple things that were really hard. For example, when I first landed in Philadelphia, I was in a dorm trying to set up a phone. It's a landline. Imagine this is on more than 20 years ago, right? So I had to call AT&T. And even though I was an English major in college, it did give me a little bit advantage, but I wasn't, right? Like it's a textbook English, right? And you come to the US, it's different. It's just different. And then I remember the representative, she was talking so fast about all the contracts I need to say yes or no to. I just couldn't understand. And I was so frustrated. I remember crying in the dorm. I made 3 attempts to call them. So I just want a phone installed so I can call my mom. That's all I want.
Mm.
It
Mm.
took 3 calls and then some yes and no's. I don't even know what I said yes to. And then finally got the phone installed. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, so it's a funny, it's those little things that are stuck with me. Like, oh my God, that was hard. Yeah, but the early story, I say it's about survival. It's really about how can I survive.
Yeah.
Um, and then later on, it becomes something different. Yes.
Yeah. No, it absolutely is the smaller moments, those memories where you're like, wow, that was really hard. Something that you think in your mind would be really simple to do. And then in actuality, it's a lot harder than you imagined. I'm wondering about stereotypes that you've encountered in your career, maybe early on, or realizing moments like the story that you shared that perhaps were holding you back. Do you have more stories?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share one story. So here, and many who are listening may find yourself in that shoes. You're the only, or you're the first, right? You're the one. So I was the only Asian consultant in Chicago office. That was one of my early jobs. And
Hmm.
then there's a team of us, about 6 or 7. Everybody is much more seasoned than I am, right? Very seasoned consultant. And we went to Milwaukee to visit a client, which is a global large company. And we were working on multiple work streams for different functions in that global company. During the meeting, their CHRO stopped by and wanted to greet us, meet us, and say a few things. And we were taking turns to introduce ourselves. And the lead principal consultant said, hey, this is Selena. She's going to lead the ABC project for the HR function. The CHRO, he looked at me and then said, oh, so I got the shorter end of the stick. I
Oh.
remember thinking to myself, what does that mean? It's a phrase I'm not familiar with.
Mm.
And it didn't sound like a compliment, but I wasn't sure, right? Imagine all of these are going through my head in that 2 seconds. I don't know what to say. And then the moment passed.
Mhm.
And I didn't say anything. But I was wondering, to a point, I actually went home, looked up a dictionary to just to make sure I understand exactly what that means. And I went back to the principal consultant, almost like a senior partner. I said, did he just insult me in front of everyone? So this is second day, next day, right?
Mhm.
What made it worse is the senior consultant said, I'll use a fake name. So he said, oh, that's Joe. Joe is just being Joe. Yeah, that moment was still like imprinted in my head. And I think that's something that's driving me a lot more today is not necessarily victim kind of mentality, right? And rather, I think it is becoming a mission and a purpose for me that I have ever since always been very intentional to be allies to others,
Mm.
especially those who are oftentimes at disadvantaged position and they need our help. So if you're listening, you're tuning into this is resonating. If you have those moments in your life in the past, you understand the pain. So let's elevate each other. And Sohee, I love how you always support and advocate for other Asian, especially women, right?
Mhm.
In situations like that. So that's really it becoming a strength and a force for me to just support other Asian women, or it doesn't have to be Asian, obviously, just those who need help. And they are oftentimes the playing field is not leveled, right?
Yeah, I think for me, and thank you for sharing that story, it's really about anybody that feels othered and not seen, or to your earlier story about being invisible. And so many of us can relate to that story. And we've had conversations, you and I, about the difference between being a sponsor versus an ally. And before we go there, I think your story about that CHRO is really resonant. And I know I've had moments in my life where I'm like, wait a second, whether it's because of my name, people had biases about what I look like, or just had these preconceived notions. And even an example that I shared with you about writing a book, my first book, and how I
Mm-hmm.
know that there were people out there doubting me. And I use that as fuel to actually do it and then some. And that's what I love about your story, which is it was a poignant, like really something that left a mark with you, and then you turned it around to help fuel you for good. It's like being a superhero.
And I love your story about how your book got published and the resilience. I'm not joking or anything really. So you have been such an inspiration for me too. I can't imagine the strengths and the
Mm.
willpower you need to lean into to just to come out really strong and brilliant with your book. The aligned mindset. I read the book. It's fantastic. The stories in it. It's so practical and real. Yeah, absolutely. I recommend everyone to take a read of that. Yes.
Lena, I promise listeners, I did not plug Selena to say this
I
at all.
told you I am very intentional about being allies and sponsors for others, and I wouldn't endorse your book if I didn't learn from it.
Oh
Yes.
my gosh, what a compliment. Wow, I'm gonna sit with that, but I do have other questions. So, so difference for those that are newer to allyship, what's the difference between sponsor and ally from your perspective?
I'll take a stab at this. I don't know if I'm the most expert on that. For me, I think sponsorship it takes a step further, meaning that, hey, I know what she's capable of. I not only know her as a friend, I also know her professionally. So
Mhm.
next time when we have those closed door conversation, doing promotion review, talent review, have a high visibility, high stake project, I'm speaking career wise, I will actually vouch for Sohee. I will say, you know what, everybody, Sohee is the right person for this job
Mm.
because blah, blah, blah. I am putting my credibility and my reputation on the line for you. That's a sponsorship. And that's not an easy thing to do, but I do think that we should do more of it. Use your power wisely because you have it, you're in the position, you have that power, and then use that wisely to elevate others.
Yeah, I love that definition because I view it similarly, where allyship is a little bit more passive. Sponsoring is really, to your point, saying the person's name in the room when they're not in the room and putting them up for positions or projects or opportunities.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm wondering now more about your leadership. I guess the question is forming as I'm talking, which is being an Asian woman. And we talked about being the only, and I've certainly experienced that in my career because it is such a unique career. And I was literally the only in rooms, boardrooms, all of that, doing what I do. I imagine you had the same experience. How has that shaped who you are as a leader? And do you have a philosophy on who you are as a leader, as a modern Asian woman?
Hmm. I don't know how different that is from, let's say, a non-Asian leader. For me, maybe I'll just share a little bit of the Selena version of it. I truly believe that leadership is a privilege. It's a privilege that we need to take seriously and think hard about how do I want to lead? What exactly is the value that I bring? I love the book about leadership can it's amplifiers, right? It really isn't about me. I remember you are also an executive coach, so I think you'll appreciate this, right?
Mhm.
I remember a while ago I was having a conversation with a coach about something. I don't remember what it was, but I was like, oh, what about this? What about that? Or oh, I was talking about giving some feedback to the person, right? Especially constructive feedback. I was like, oh, how do I do this?
Mhm.
That's always fun, right? Remember the coach said to me, she said, Selena, this is not about you. This is not about you. This is about her. So that was a aha moment for me. Oh my gosh, yeah, this is not about me trying to tell you you need to do this differently, right? You're doing this wrong, or this is not about me. This is about her. How can I help her to be successful? What
Mhm.
does she want? And is she heard and seen? And what is her frustration? How does her style impact what she wants to achieve, right? that completely shifted my angle, right? Looking at a situation like that.
Mhm.
So for me, I think what has been really beneficial, one of my superpower is I'm learning still, right? I can't say I'm the master of it, but really step into the other person's shoe and
Mm.
think from what does it matter for Sohee? Why does she want to do this? What does she want to get out of it before we impose, no, this is what you should do, right? I don't think that is the second approach. It doesn't work as effectively.
Yeah. I was just really sitting with your story and the power of shifting perspectives, which is a muscle that many of us need to strengthen. And I love to use the analogy of a muscle that's atrophied. And if we're not used to shifting and really embodying what's important to that person, it's really hard to understand. And it's really hard to build what I call building bridges. And I think that what you're saying about what it means to be a leader is to take yourself out of it, build the bridge to understand what that person's perspective is so that you can then support them in the way they need.
Yeah, absolutely. You're reminding me of a study that they found compared to a group of Japanese participants versus American participants.
Uh-huh.
And they were shown a picture basically of, or a model of a train passing through a mountain, right? A mountain. And then the Western culture participant noticed the train. Here's the train. It's powerful. It's moving fast. Boom. It's zooming through the mountains. Asian participants notice also the surrounding. Hey, the mountain is like this. Oh, there's a lake. The conclusion of that, not no good or bad or right. Rather, it's saying our Asian culture, especially, we have a tendency or strength to also notice the context, the taking the different perspectives. This is where I feel like we have a strength that we can lean further into when it comes to leadership, that we are maybe even more sensitive to the context, to the nuances that can give us some superpower when it comes to leading others.
You literally, as Selena, as you were saying that, you blew my mind. And the way that you really, in this moment, blew my mind was around that is an absolute strength where the story I had around the Asian, like looking for the community, if you will, and that's my interpretation of it, the larger system. My younger years and in my grad school and through my early career, I saw that as a negative. And what I love about what you're saying is that it's an absolute strength, which now I'm going to reframe for myself. So that's powerful. It can definitely be a strength. And thank you for sharing that study.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other strength that I see is around sensitivity. Tell me how being an Asian female, how there are strengths and how you leverage that in leadership.
Mm. I think one of my superpower I consistently hear from others is about collaborate. And it's funny, I also have an article in Harvard Business Review that talks about collaboration and some of the classic quote feedbacks people give people. So there's a little, so bear with me, there's a little bit of complexity about collaboration. So when I hear that, people say, "Hey, Selena, you're very good at collaboration. You're such a great team player," right? So it's well intended. I want to give this language to everyone who might be listening. Is fantastic. It's well intended. It's meant as a compliment. Now we also understand. Oftentimes, Asian are there's a stereotype of Asian. Hey, you're so he's a great team player. She works well with everybody, right? But what's missing there is the piece about why is Sohee collaborating? Just because she's a nice person? She wants to be nice to everybody? No. So the narrative I'm going to ask everybody to flip is, hey, thank you. That's a great, I appreciate that feedback. When I strive for collaboration, I want to strategically and intentionally break the boundaries because we tend to have silos when functions are not listening or collaborating or working with each other. And I see that is really can become a barrier for our Vision 2030. So I really appreciate your feedback. I will continue to lean into that is to drive this kind of cross-functional collaboration so we can be much more strategically aligned. So that's a little bit different perspective or narrative that we can flip is, hey, Asian are not just nice, so they collaborate or they're a team player. On top of it, there is a strategic intention behind. So that's an example of the kind of strength I want to continue to pull into my work, but also shift the narrative about the reason why.
And hello, that is so powerful. I really want listeners to sit with that because the example that you shared, which is very common for a lot of women, Asian or not, is this strength of bringing people in and being collaborative. And you did a really nuanced switch around it being about strategically impacting the business for the benefit of the larger organization and the business reaching its goals, which I really think is so powerful. So tell everybody what's the title of your article. It's obviously Harvard Business Review and when it was published and where they can find it.
I don't remember. I have to look for it.
We'll put it in the show notes. However, do you remember the title so people that are interested can search?
I'll find it, I promise.
Okay, you heard it here, everyone. She's going to find it and we'll follow up. I think, again, that's really a powerful reframe. And how do you find that you, as when you were younger, wanted to be a leader? And how did that come about for you in your career journey?
This is where I kind of feel our Asian culture really paid off in a very positive way. I don't know. I always just have that ambition or drive. Sometimes my ambition get in the way, so I need to watch for that. But I have to say, I'm very grateful because that is a drive for me. What else can I do? What more can I achieve? But nowadays, it's not just about what more I can achieve, but rather what more can I achieve in order to serve my purpose? So that's a little bit different, right? I really appreciate and want to embrace my culture and you're ingrained and brought up in that way, even from elementary about you need to do better, you need to do more. And that is a strength.
Oh my gosh. Let's listen. First of all, Selena, I want all of my friends to be ambitious. There is nobody that will cheer harder on the sidelines than me for all of the women that want to do their thing. There is always room, first and foremost. So never diminish your ambition. And that's what I so love about you. Every single time I talk to you, it's like you want to do this or you want to do that, which I think, yes, 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 all the time. The thing about ambition, it's so funny. I was having this conversation with an individual yesterday around it's so tightly coupled with the Asian upbringing and also perfectionism, drive to do more and better. What I love about your shift is that it's less about checking off the boxes, but making it much more intentional and purposeful. And I'll use the word aligned. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the word aligned. I know you mentioned in your book about aligned mindset. I do think when we are aligned, meaning what we do is aligned with our purpose and meaning, I really do think it's a beautiful thing. It becomes so much more powerful. And also, by the way, I promise I'm gonna get back to you and find out the article. It's called So You Want to Get Noticed at Work. That's the title of the article, Harvard Business Review.
I love it. Let me repeat that. It's called So You Want to Get Noticed, HBR. And you were right. You probably were searching behind the scenes. I love it. And I want all of the listeners to find it because the article is so actionable and it is such a flip on the tired narrative, which is what this podcast is all about, just rewriting the stories. And so, Selena, I could talk to you forever, and we've had like hour long or more conversations, and time flies by, and it's so true on this podcast episode. So I want to ask you, how would you define what it means to be a modern Asian female?
I absolutely love that question. Believe it or not, Sohee, I really had to think hard about this question.
Ooh, good. I love when I get you to think
I know, right? You always make me think. I'm so tired.
in a good way, right? In a good way.
Way, yeah, absolutely in a great way. I hope this will also resonate with you and a lot of Asian women. What I think about, there's so many things. The foremost for me is what I admire most about modern Asian female or woman is someone who's clear about her self-identity.
Ooh.
And so what I mean by that is it is not about being a mom, a wife, a daughter, a aunt, or a daughter-in-law, right? These are all really important aspects of our lives. And we absolutely do not only assume these roles, we work hard and do a fantastic job at being a mom, being a wife, a daughter, right? A good daughter-in-law, right?
Mhm.
But the foremost important thing is I am me. I am Selena. I have my passion. I have my interests. I have my likes, dislikes. I have my core values, my purpose, and I have arrived. I am here for a reason. So these are just as important, if not more important. And it's a funny one, even when I'm saying this, I almost picture like my mom's generation will say, "Oh my gosh, how can you say that? How selfish is that?" Or like those voices. But you know what? I feel a lot of Asians, where I'll just say, I spend so much of my earlier life trying to be someone that our Asian culture or customs expects me to be. And I know that did not result me living a fulfilled life. It led to confusion or maybe even resentment.
Ooh.
And one more thing I will say is I am very proud. I am apologetically Chinese, right? Our culture, I mentioned our value, all of these made me who I am today. So what I am advocating for, so he is a 2.0 version that fully embraces culture and value while also accepting and celebrating you, that unique you. And then so if you ask, hey, what does that 2.0 version looks like? It's up to us to define. So that's what I think, yeah, a modern Asian will look like.
Can I just tell you, when you were giving us your definition, I was getting chills. Honestly, it just is so powerful. That concept of being clear about her self-identity beyond all the roles that we play. I love it so much, Selena, and it really inspired me. And by the way, for our listeners, we're recording this episode on Valentine's Day, and I have flipped it to be a day about celebrating friendships and womanhood. And I love that we're recording on this day because I am just thrilled that we are friends and I'm cheering you on. And I love this definition. Thank you.
Thank you. You reminded me, oh my gosh, it is Valentine's Day. What a great day to celebrate and have this fantastic conversation with you, Sohee.
Yes, yes. Okay, before we hop off, tell people where you're going to be speaking, how they can reach out to you, and just love on you like I love you.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. If this resonated with you, I'd love to see you at HR West conference in March on 11th and 12th in Oakland, California. I will also be speaking at Leap HR in April. That's going to be in downtown San Francisco. And absolutely, find me on LinkedIn, Selena Yuan, find me, connect with me. Let's talk. I absolutely welcome that.
I love that. And also a little jealous because you have to always have room for me. Hello.
Always, absolutely always.
All right, last question. Selena, I'm a firm believer that we need to amplify what we're in conversation about today. So, who else should we have on my podcast?
Oh my gosh, there's so many amazing Asian women. I will name Lily Zhang, VP of Head of Engineering at Keeper AI. She's named top 25 AI trailblazers, also
Hmm.
native Chinese and amazing, intelligent, fully capable executive in the male dominant industry.
Oof.
Lily Zhang. And the other woman is Raquel. She's Vietnamese descent and she was in corporate role. She left and started her own restaurant in Philadelphia downtown. And what's fascinating is she's also advocating to bring gourmet food to a community that usually is not cannot afford gourmet food. So think about that mission and purpose.
Wow.
She's fantastic. I also love the article that Joyce and Angela published in Harvard Business Review about stop overlooking the potential of the high potential of Asian employees. Those two women are absolutely fantastic. So just to name a few, there are many more, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to have them on. And Angela will be on a future episode. Yes, I cannot wait to be in conversation with these women. You are such a light in the world, Selena, and I know the listeners will be reaching out in droves. So until next time, and we will continue later.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Sohee.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on this podcast, Selena. I have so enjoyed our conversation, and I know our listeners will too. Wow, wow, wow. Can y'all hear why I am such a fan of Selena? Let me tell you a little bit more about her and share with you her bio. With more than 20 years of experience, Selena is a growth catalyst known for her strategic vision and forward looking talent strategies. Her innovative approach to creating a sustainable and scalable talent ecosystem has allowed her to be able to build, scale, and accelerate business growth. Selena leads with a clear purpose to help companies achieve success by maximizing the full potential of people. Beyond her corporate success, Selena is a passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion. She serves as the chairwoman and board of director for the Silicon Valley leadership community, championing the advancement of Asian senior executives. Her article on career development has also been featured in Harvard Business Review in 2023. And this is the article that we talked about titled, So You Want to Get Noticed at Work. Selena holds a Ph.D. in organizational behavior and human resource management from the University of Illinois at Chicago. Obviously, she has a lot of credentials and a lot of experience, but what I love the most about Selena is just how soulful, real, and authentic she is. And our conversation had so many themes and topics that really resonated with me. In particular, we talked a lot about career challenges and how she took the year to really turn around and work through her self-doubt. And she named the classic Asian voices of what I call really the inner critic, where they were judgmental and do you really know what you're doing? Then she has turned her self talk to one that's much more encouraging and asking her things like, what are you proud of? To ultimately creating a newer version of herself. And so I want to invite you to reflect on when you have gone through challenges. One, think about the ways that you've made it through and what's self-talk that you can say to yourself now that is much more encouraging. And I think it's really important for us to anchor into being our own best champions. And I have this phrase around being our own inner champion. So rather than looking for external validation, what would you tell yourself now, knowing that you've overcome challenges yourself? So really reflect on that and think about the challenges that you've overcome, how you did that, and what your self-talk would be today. We also touched on, leadership, that it is definitely a privilege, and leadership is about amplifying and being an amplifier for others. And so if you are a leader by title in your current role or want to be one, how can you amplify for others on your team? How can you be that amplifier? And so really reflect on that. And then last but not least, what are the ways in which you will say yes to yourself? One of the really powerful things that Selena shared is she's really clear about her nose, which is being disrespected, talked over, diminished. And she shared that really powerful example of when she felt very invisible, which I really relate to as well. And so think about that for yourself. And if that happens to you, what are the ways, the actions that you will take to advocate for yourself? And in Selena's instance, she had conversations one on one separately immediately after that incident. So, how can you start to show more courage and a micro action forward to advocate for yourself, leading with the intention of understanding for both sides? So, really think about that one. I loved, absolutely, it was so powerful how she defined being a modern Asian female, that the modern Asian female is clear about her self identity and her purpose, and it's the 2.0 version of her. So, thank you for joining us in this conversation. And I hope that it has inspired you to get clearer about your purpose and about your own self identity and your own growth and development. And if you liked this episode, stay tuned. There are so many conversations that I'm going to be in where you will definitely leave a lot wiser, way more inspired. And I need your help. I need your help to amplify the work that we are doing in rewriting what it means to be a modern Asian female. So I'm going to ask you to please follow and leave a review. If you really resonated with the episode, leave a review because it helps me to get this out into the ears of everyone that needs to be inspired and seen and heard. And a little plug for The Aligned Mindset, which is my second book. The Aligned Mindset, Secrets of High Achieving Women for Navigating Work and Life, is out on Amazon. So if you haven't, pick yourself up a copy. It's available in all the different formats. So if you love to listen to it in the car, you can do that through Audible. There are hard copies, soft copies, all the different ways that you can listen or take in the content. And last but not least, please share this podcast. It's available on all platforms, Spotify, Apple, which already has reviews. Thank you if you've left a review. I'm truly grateful. It's also available on iHeart and Listen Notes. So, all the ways that you can access Asian like me. Let's get this out into the world and not keep it a secret. Thank you for helping me do that. Until next time.